Time for MacBreak Weekly. We've got Rich Siegel from Bare Bones Software here, along with Andy Ihnatko. We're going to talk about the new iPad, of course. We're going to talk about the conference call that Tim Cook had with analysts and the announcement of the stock buyback and dividend. And we'll spank Mr. Daisey. It's all coming up next on MacBreak Weekly.
Netcasts you love.
From people you trust.
This is TWiT.
Bandwidth for MacBreak Weekly is provided by Cachefly at CACHEFLY.com.
This is MacBreak Weekly, episode 291, recorded March 20th, 2012. The Black Blood of the Earth. MacBreak Weekly is brought to you by Carbonite Online Backup. Automatic, continuous, unlimited backup for your computer files. Just $59 a year. Try it free at Carbonite.com. Use the offer code MacBreak, and you'll get 2 bonus months with purchase. And by Audible.com. To download a free audiobook of your choice, go to Audible.com/MacBreak. And by Ford, featuring Curve Control to help protect against crashes on curves. Look for Curve Control available in the 2013 Ford Taurus, or learn more at Ford.com/cars/Taurus. It's time for MacBreak Weekly, the show that covers the latest Apple news, and there is quite a bit of it. Let's start to my left. Andy Ihnatko is here from the Chicago Sun-Times, joined by 3 lovely comic book characters. Good to see you, Andrew.
Happy St. Patrick's Day, a few days late.
Do you go out and do you dress? You could dress credibly as a leprechaun, I believe.
Two problems with that. A, I'm a little bit too tall, and B, as a freelance journalist, I have no pot of gold. Also, no makeup pot.
You have an imaginary pot of gold, though. That qualifies you.
My pot of gold is my talent, and I'm still looking for it on a basis. Thanks. I'm depressed.
Nice to see you. Hello. Also with us, we should mention Alex Lindsay is probably never going to be on this show again. The man, which is for him is a great thing, and I'm just jesting. Of course he will, but he is traveling like a mother. I saw him 2 days ago. I said, "Hey, Alex, you're in town." He said, "Just for today." Yeah. And where is he now? He's in London?
Today is in Chicago.
Chicago.
Yeah, deep dish. No, I'm kidding. He's got work happening right now.
It's good. He's because of Pixel Core. He's an independent production guy, and he gets a lot of work. So you can't knock it. But at the same time, we miss you, Alex. We miss you. So we are very glad in his place to have the wonderful Rich Siegel, who is the kind of original with his parrot, Bruno. Is that Bruno Mars?
That's Bruno D. Bird. He demands to be in frame, and he actually gets paid scale for it.
So, I'll send you a check.
He costs me a lot of money.
Rich is one of the great Mac developers. Bare Bones Software, of course, the creators of BB Edit, Yojimbo. What else?
Text Wrangler.
Text Wrangler, which is the now free version of BB Edit, basically.
That's right, and that pretty much rounds out our line.
You did an email package for a little itsy-weetsy bit.
Yeah, for a while we had an email client that actually got spun out. I've been sort of maintaining it on an informal basis, just keeping it working well enough for me to use. But, that was Mailsmith.
Mailsmith. I loved Mailsmith.
Well, it's still around. I'm still using it. It still works.
I think that's one of the things about Rich's stuff is it develops devoted, hardcore fans who will just say, "I will use nothing else."
Well, fear keeps everyone in line.
Anyway, really glad to have you, because I do like to get into the developer's perspective from time to time. Apple and its relationships with the developers are always a little bit interesting, and Worldwide Developers Conference is coming up, and there's lots to talk about. So thank you for being here, Mr. Siegel.
Thanks for having me, Mr. Laporte.
So I guess we should start with the biggest story, which was a very, I think, unprecedented thing for Apple. Tim Cook's been doing this more. This is his second analyst call. He announced, I think they announced this on Thursday, that they were going to have an analyst call on Friday. Well, or was it? No, they announced Sunday they were going to have it on Monday, so it was yesterday, that they were going to 6 a.m. Pacific time, 9 a.m. Eastern time, speak to the $100 billion surplus. and what we're going to do with it. And what they're going to do with it, they announced, is to offer a dividend for the first time in history, a $2.65 per share dividend distributed each quarter, starting with the company's fourth fiscal quarter in 2012. That begins July 1st. And spend a significant amount of money on buying stock back. Andy, what's a buyback? I don't understand.
Usually it's a sign that the company's investing in itself. Someone on Twitter reminded me of a great quote that when a company does a buyback, it's often referred to as buying back their soul. Because they want to take shares of stock out of the stockholders' hands and back into their own coffers, where they can control more of the company and actually be more of a participant in their own future. During the call, though, Tim Cook said that the specific point of that, though, was to offset the effects of all the stock options that were going to be coming into play for some of their employees and executives in the near future. So it's not quite the investment in Apple's future. I mean, their future is already pretty locked in.
Boy, I'm no finance whiz, so I'm going to try to see if I can paraphrase what's going on. And if I get it wrong, Rich and Andy, you beat me over the head. So a company goes to the equity markets, the financial markets, with a public offering in order to raise money. They take a certain percentage of the company. It doesn't always have to be a significant percentage. In Facebook's case, it's not, for instance. But let's say 5, 10, 50, whatever % of the company. And they sell shares up to that amount. They set a starting stock price, which is the amount of money they're going to get. And then ever after, the stock market trades those shares back and forth, and the price goes up. So I don't know what Apple's IPO, which was many moons ago, I don't know what their strike price was, their original price, but they got the cash. And that was it. There's the money. Here's your packet of money. And now shares of the company are out there, and people trade it back and forth, and the stock price goes up, 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 up. Now, Apple, of course, retains some shares, stuff they didn't put on the market, and those shares they can give to employees as options, bonuses, or grants. Option means an option to buy at a certain price. If I go to work for Apple, and the Apple stock price is $600, usually that's my what they call a strike price. They give me 1,000 shares priced at $600. If the stock continues to go up, and this is the idea to incent an employee that the stock will go up, then I can sell those $600 shares for the new, let's say, $700 price, and I will get the total price of the option plus the growth. So that's good. If it goes down, then the amount of the grant, in effect, goes down. So it's an incentive program. There's options. There's grants. So when these employees take this stock and start to pump it in the market, that dilutes the total number of shares out there. It increases the number of shares out there. And so this buyback would be, in effect, Apple buying its own stock, the stock that they sold originally for, $40 a share. I don't remember what the strike price was, but $40 a share at this new $600 rate. So they're paying out some good money. But the idea is now there are fewer shares on the market, so this effect of the employees cashing in their options is mitigated. It also, as you said, Andy, it has a psychological effect on the market, because if a company spends the current stock price for shares in its company, it's essentially saying, we think we're worth more, or at least are.
I was talking to one of my Seeing Eye nerds about this. These are the people who know a lot more than I do about it, something I know very little about. And this is the business of these stock transactions. And he's saying that he was telling me that in a younger company, there are two reasons for a company to buy itself back: either because they know that their stock is currently undervalued, and that they themselves can really add a lot of value to their own company that will really be a good investment for themselves, to simply say, we want to take some shares off the floor for a while. Another one is that if you believe that that these stockholders in many ways, in some way or another, have a little bit too much power over your decisions, you might, as an ongoing basis, if your coffers are flush, to say, you know what, we want to take more of our company out of public hands and make it private again.
Right.
So, never to say you're ever going to buy out yourselves completely, but obviously, if you want to, it's overall, it really is a statement that we are a company that's really moving forward. We not only are successful, but we have the resources to control our own destiny a little bit more. In a company like Apple, though, and this is something that someone was explaining to me, neither of those are really operative. So it really does come down to what does it look like when so many employees start to see their value of their options rise and rise and rise. Right. At some point, going to say it's time to not work 5 days a week.
Well, imagine if you joined Apple even just 4 or 5 years ago, and your strike price on your, you got 1,000 options. Your strike price was $40, and now it's $600. That means you're going to realize a significant amount of money, $600,000. Yeah, that's tempting. That's really tempting. I can understand that. In some cases, you're right. It would be a case of saying, I don't want as many. I want a bigger say in what's going on. I don't want so many stockholders to tell me what to do. But Apple isn't going to ever buy enough stock back to get a significant percentage of its company back. You're going to have shareholders no matter what. The other thing that was surprising to me that we didn't know, we always knew that Apple had $100 billion in cash. What we didn't know is that most of that is held by overseas affiliates or subsidiaries. Boy, I tell you, I know nothing about finance. Is this that Irish sandwich thing that Google was using? I don't.
There's another sandwich job.
I don't. So Peter Oppenheimer, who's the CFO, said that repatriating the cash from offshore will result in significant tax consequences. So what Google does, and I guess Apple's been doing this as well, is by pumping some of its profits into, say, Ireland, where there's no corporate tax, they save corporate tax in the U.S. So Google, for instance, created an Irish subsidiary, gave the subsidiary all of its patents and licenses them back in the U.S., then the money gets pumped into Ireland where there's no corporate tax. Woohoo! Then there's an even more complicated transaction that goes on through the Canary Islands, and there's all sorts of stuff they do. This is U.S. companies do this all the time to avoid corporate taxes. Presumably, I'm guessing that's why $64 billion out of the 100 is held outside the U.S. But they're going to bring it back to buy these stocks, and that's going to be a big tax consequence. Good. All I can say is, yeah, that's a good idea.
Isaac Asimov had that saying that any sufficiently advanced science is indistinguishable from magic.
Yeah.
I believe that any significantly advanced amount of economy is distinguishable from crime. But you realize that there are a lot of people making sure that this at least is technically legal. So okay.
Oh, I'm sorry. I got that wrong. The cash that they're going to use for the dividend buyback, the $45 billion, is just Apple's U.S. money. So they're not going to repatriate. I apologize. They decided not to because of the tax consequences.
That's correct. And when there is that much money involved, and the tax consequences just sort of go sky high, and it makes sense for them to avoid coughing up the taxes until they really, really, really need to.
It worries me a little bit then, because they're going to spend pretty much all the cash that they have in the bank today. Of course, they'll have more by the end of this buyback, but they're going to spend $45 billion is like the total U.S. cash reserve.
Yeah, but what's left over is still enough that if they want... Yeah.
Well, there's actually a couple of considerations there. One is that they're not coughing it all up all at once. They're doing this over time.
So they'll make more money.
And they'll make more money, and actually the rate at which, I forget where I saw this, somebody did the math, but the rate at which they're making money is actually going to exceed the rate at which they spend it.
So they're going to end up with more money in the banks anyway.
So they're going to end up with a suitable cash reserve no matter what exactly.
That's what Tim Cook said. He said, don't worry. we got plenty.
You worry about nothing. I got a guy.
You know what was fun, though, is when Sunday, when we got news that they were going to have this conference, was the speculation. If everybody said, they're going to do a dividend. But if they didn't, what would they do? Somebody said, buy Canada. That's a good idea. You could buy Twitter. You could buy the entire music industry. There's a lot you could do with that money. And I guess they're still going to have it. So there you go. The other news from this analyst call, Tim Cook said the iPad had a record weekend, the most sales of any first weekend of any of the three iPads. And I think I saw a figure, and I don't know if it came from Tim Cook or from an analyst, but that they had sold, what was it, 2.5 or 3 million iPads in the first 4 days.
Yeah, that's what were we predicting last week for the first
We
week?
were a little out of line. I know. You were the one that was closest, Andy.
It was, well, also, what's unusual to me is not just simply the number of units that they sold, but the fact that I think this is the first iPad release where they seem to have managed to have anticipated supply correctly.
Yes, you can still walk into an Apple store and buy one, right?
Can't buy 30 of them, but you can't get your hold of them. Also, I've been talking to people who place their orders online who are promised that, we won't be able to send this to you for another 2 or 3 weeks, right. And it arrived about 2 weeks earlier.
Oh, that's good.
So, I don't know who's doing what, but they figured something out at Apple.
We had heard that they were. We heard in November that the manufacturing had already ramped up for the iPad 3. This kind of might confirm that now. They've been cranking them out for months.
Yeah, and as usual, we'll see the first. We've already seen the first wave of the screen's a little bit yellow. Well, they're going to be yellow because
right.
they need time to cure.
Right. I didn't have that problem. Did you have it? Have you seen that?
It was a little bit yellow, but only if I put it side by side against my iPad 2 just for comparison. But it's already starting to fade a little bit.
It's the glue, right? It's not. It's the glue has to cure.
It's curing time that takes. I think the last time I checked was like 2.5, 3 weeks, something like that, before it's completely stable the way it's going to be. But yeah, that's fortunately we've had the iPad 1 and the iPad 2, so now we can really segregate what is something that we can expect from a brand new versus what is, hey, this is different. Why is this now acting so strange?
AT&T claimed the new iPad set a new single-day device activation record for those who bought AT&Ts, beating that set by the iPhone 4S last October. The iPhone 4S did sell 4 million units in its launch weekend, so this is a record for the iPad, but not a record for Apple. You predicted what, Andy? 2.5?
I think I was said for the first week it would go closer to 8. I'm not sure. I'm not sure. I remember.
I said I think 15, which is Apple says we might sell 14 this quarter. So I think we were just. I was anyways. I'll take the fall. I was swept up in iPad mania.
Irrational. Well, that's what Apple sells.
Yeah,
that's pixie dust that causes people to spend $500 for a device that even people like us cannot say in 2 sentences what the iPad is for.
Rich, I'm figuring you bought an iPad. I don't know what to call it.
The
new
did,
iPad.
Actually. I have one right here.
You surprised me because you said that this is an upgrade from the iPad 1. You skipped the 2.
Yeah, I skipped the 2. The 2 was a very nice machine, but I looked at it and it wasn't enough nicer than what I had to make me want to run out and buy one.
Right.
So I waited, and I'm honestly glad I did, because if I hadn't, I would have had to skip this one. This is a very nice machine. It's a great upgrade from my first-gen iPad, which was starting to feel kind of a little sluggish and slow when I was using it. In weird places, too, like keyboard input was lagging.
Yeah. So what was it that put you over the top for this one?
I think it was the combination of the improvements coming from the iPad 2. I mean, it was a little slimmer than the iPad 1. It was easier to hold comfortably. The screen was just sort of the icing on the cake. You look at this thing in person, and the screen really, really does sell it. I got the same size. I got a Wi-Fi only like my iPad 1. So, really it's pretty much strictly a functional upgrade. And I'm really enjoying it so far. The text in iBooks is just ridiculously easy to read now.
Yeah, I love it.
Somebody on Twitter that I follow, I forget who at the moment, made an observation that you can actually dim the screen a little bit lower than you could with previous generations of iPads. I've noticed that as well, and it's great for nighttime use.
I make my text smaller too. I opened the Kindle app and my text was gigantic, which it had to be, I guess, on the iPad too. And so I made it smaller, and it's nice. I get more on the screen. We'll talk more about the new iPad with Rich Siegel of Bare Bones Software, Andy Ihnatko of the Chicago Sun-Times, and of course lots more news to come. Before we go any further, though, can I mention our friends at the Ford Motor Company? I drove my Mustang here, and every time, in fact, I posted a picture on Twitter. My son. I wonder if I can find this. My son has a unique seat position. When I drive him to school, he leans the seat all the way back, and gets comfortable. Which I have to say, I quite admire his his relaxation. Let me see if I can find this picture. A lot of people said, "What is that car? It looks really. The seats look really nice." They are. That's my 2010. Can you see it? Yeah, Ford Mustang, and that's Henry's seat position. And of course, he's got the first thing he does. He gets in the car, and my phone is mated to the Ford Sync. First thing he does is he knows now it's a 3-button push to take over the audio system from his iPhone and start blasting the beats. So the car is boom, 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 and he's leaned back like this. What a life that kid has. The life of a 17-year-old. And if you look closely, the picture of me next to this is my reaction to all of this. My head on the table. I say all this because I love my Ford. And, you know, Henry wants to drive the Mustang, but I am going to wait. I am going to get him one of the new Ford. He's not going to like me for this. Tauruses, because of the curve control, because of the systems in the Ford to make it a safer car. For instance, the curve control will keep him from, as he would, I know, in my Mustang, steering off the road. 100 times a second, Ford's car computer looks at, listen to this, roll rate, yaw rate, lateral acceleration, wheel speed, and steering angle. The whole idea is to figure out how quickly the vehicle is turning versus how quickly Henry is trying to turn it. And if he's trying to turn it faster than it can turn, what's going to happen? The whole thing is going to break away. The curve control prevents that. It just can't happen. It's the same kind of improvement that anti-lock brakes transformed how we brake. And it just does it automatically. We're all used to it now. It's every car is going to, I would hope, would have this, but right now Ford's got it. Rapidly reduces engine torque the minute it sees the problem. Applies four-wheel braking. It can slow the vehicle up to 10 miles an hour per second. Wet or dry, it doesn't matter. This keeps you on the road. You should see the difference. Your car drives like one of those sure-footed donkeys at the Grand Canyon. You can't go off the road. It's so amazing. You can find out more at Ford.com/cars/Taurus. When you're there, take a look at everything else, the EcoBoost engine, the adaptive cruise control, the collision avoidance systems. This is what a 21st century car should be, and there is no company leading the pack like Ford, really doing amazing stuff. I'm not surprised. These guys are engineering-driven, technology-focused. Take a look. Drive the 2013 Ford Taurus at a Ford dealer near you today, or visit Ford.com/cars/Taurus and learn more about curve control. And if you have a 2010 Mustang, not a bad idea to lean the seat back and relax, but only if you're not driving. Dad's sitting bolt upright. You know what? He took, I want to ask you about this. He took, he's taking driving, he's learning how to drive, driver's training. I'm so scared. And the driver's training people said, no, 10 and 2 is not how you should hold the wheel. That's old. We now hold it down here at, 5 and 7. When did that happen? It's apparently, they said if you crash and your airbags go off, your arms will break, and it's ergonomically better, which I've always thought, because it's hard to hold your hands like this forever, and it keeps you from oversteering. See, they always taught us 10 and 2 because you can, but I guess in the days of power steering, it doesn't matter anymore. So
the Stig uses 9 and 3.
Really?
Yeah, that's what I was going to say.
9 and 3.
But those are like performance drivers.
Yeah, and there's no way I can hold the wheel there because there's a big bar. So, okay, it's close to 9 and 3. It's just underneath 9 and 3.
Leo, what I want to know is whether that fancy car of yours sends you an SMS every time your kid's driving and the skid control kicks in.
Wouldn't that be nice? you know, it does. All the modern cars now have a dock. I didn't know this, but they have a little dock underneath the dashboard for you to put these car computers in, and you absolutely can get devices after the third-party aftermarket devices that you plug in that will monitor all of that.
I have one in my car. It's totally changed the way I drive.
Yeah.
I get real-time data on my engine performance and my MPG, and I think I actually made it a pick of the week. It's called the Scan Plus.
That's it. Yeah.
And it's just I keep marveling at the fact that all my life I've known the reasons for driving efficiently, and you'll save money on gas. That had then it's actually safer driving, so you won't get killed probably. That had no effect. You'll save wear and tear in your engine. That had no effect. But if you put a little thing on my dash that gave me a score that I could try to beat every time, say, congratulations, you drove much more like a weenie than you did the last time you were driving on this mile route.
Now, you don't have kids, Rich, do you?
I have a 14-year-old in the house.
Perfect. Okay. So this Ford does have this My Key thing. It's a special key for the teenager. And it ensures that, for instance, the belt minder warning continues to chime. You know, it goes off after a certain amount of time. No. When you're using the teenager key, it keeps ringing. The audio sound system remains muted until the safety belts are buckled. No sound for you. You can use the My Key to set limits on speed, the maximum volume of the audio system, and my favorite thing about the Ford My Key is the low fuel light comes on sooner. 75 miles to empty. Because teenagers will drive to the bitter end. I know, I was a teenager. In fact, Henry got back from Santa Barbara. I don't know how he did this. He and his friends drove down to Santa Barbara and back. He left the car. I think he left the car with a thimbleful. I've never seen it so empty. And I don't know how he timed it. So they must have said, okay, let's calculate exactly how much gas it will take to get back from Santa Barbara. Put that much in and no more. It was like the car, if I pulled it out of the driveway, it would run out of gas. I've never seen it. It was amazing. So
I think at that point, maybe you solved the problem by just having the kid push the car to the nearest gas station.
Henry, come here. You and your friends. I got a job for you. Anyway, moving along. Andy and I were on Trey Ratcliffe's Variety Hour, Trey's Variety Hour last night, talking about, among other things, iPad photography. And I think Andy thinks I'm nuts, but I love the camera in the new iPad so much. That's how I took that picture, by the way, of the Ford. That I've been using it for everything lately, and I'm just a huge fan.
I got to admit that I have two problems with it. I might have been turned around on it slightly this morning because I was out to breakfast. I was ordering waffles. And the idea of like taking pictures and seeing like an 8x10.
Yeah, baby.
Pretty cool. As a matter of fact, this kind of looked better even because it was
makes me hungry
at the actual waffles. But my problem is that, number one, there is no way to take pictures like this and not look like the biggest Dorkenstein. Secondly, there's the problems of like using. There are inherent problems always with using the iPad in bright sunlight, and so that means that when I was taking test pictures over the weekend, it was a nice, bright, sunny day, which meant that there's so much glare coming off of this huge piece of polished glass that I really couldn't see what I was aiming at. Also, the sun was washing out the screen, so I again really couldn't see what I was aiming at. And thirdly, when I'm taking it seems as though it's in many ways the worst of both worlds, where if I really want to go out and take good pictures, I'll have my real camera with me, and it takes incredibly good pictures. It's inconvenient because I have to carry it around a strap, but it takes great pictures. If I'm just taking casual pictures, I use my iPhone, and that's great because I can just simply carry it in my pocket, take it out, take a picture, then put it back in my pocket. With the iPad, I've got not great picture taking, or at least not great compared to a real camera, and I've got all the inconvenience of this big bulky thing. Unless I want to walk around with this big, like $500, $800 object that screams to people, "Hi, can you grab this and run faster than me? Have a free iPad." So.
Well, one thing I do is, you see, my case is a sun hood. Because I have a case with a lid. So in order to take the picture, if you fold the lid over, it covers the camera. So in order to take a picture, you have to do it this way. And as it turns out, it really does block the glare very nicely. In fact, Alan Tepper in the Pro Video Coalition magazine and website wrote an article saying this is the new 4x5 view camera. Because remember in the old days, the photographers, they've had to have a hood over their head.
If the Kickstarter project wanted to sell that, it clips on magnetically.
Yes.
Ready cosplay.
Yes.
But see, I think you're kind of proving my point. You're not making looking.
I don't care. Look at this picture. So it's also the camera you have, right? So there was a bunny out by the truck the other day. Not my truck, of course. Mine would be a Ford F-150. But I said, that cute bunny. And I didn't have my Canon, 5D Mark II with a telephoto lens, which I would have liked. I only had my iPad. but I think I snapped a pretty great little shot there. That's filtered a little bit with Instagram. It's not with the original. Actually, was not so. It was a little bit more natural color. The color is very good. The clarity is very good. It doesn't have. It's not wide angle or zoom, so you miss out on. It's like having a fixed prime lens. By the way, the bunny tasted fabulous. Just if people were asking, a little bit like chicken.
Yeah, I mean, it takes pictures that are about as good as the iPhone 4, the 5 megapixel camera from. It's just that I'm gonna have my iPhone 4 with me, so that's probably it's a much better camera, I think, for shooting video than anything else, because that's when you're shooting video, you are just standing. You're not taking out a video camera, snapping a second of video and putting it back in. You really are just actually actively shooting. And when you this video and you don't have to import it, you don't have to do anything to it, it's just there, and iMovie can start editing it immediately. That's pretty hot.
I agree. That's one of the reasons I like it, even for stills, is I've got iPhoto, which I'm starting to really like. Tough learning curve, but I'm starting to get it. And I can upload it immediately. Even, I got 3G, so even out in the field. And I like. To me, photography has become much more of a social thing, thanks to Instagram and Facebook and Path. I don't take pictures just for the reel or the roll or to, for my album. I take them to post them, almost always. Very rarely do I take them not post them. Yeah. Those are only the butt pictures. I save those.
I could have gone my entire life.
I know. I'm sorry, Rich. I apologize. I blame myself. Did you get AT&T or Verizon, Rich?
I actually got a Wi-Fi only iPad, but my iPhone is an AT&T iPhone.
And you use that as a hotspot then? Is that why you didn't feel the need?
No, it's just that for the way I operate nowadays, I find that whenever I'm out and about, if I have my iPad, I tend to be someplace where there's Wi-Fi.
Right. I went back and forth on that, and I ended up, because it's a company iPad, so I said, well, I'm going to buy it. But I think you probably could. Nowadays, everybody's around Wi-Fi almost all the time. You lose the GPS. Maybe that's not an issue.
Which I haven't missed. Plus, I do have the iPhone. So if I'm someplace where there's no Wi-Fi, I'll fire up the iPhone and do what I need to do.
Right.
That said, I did have a couple of second thoughts about, did I make the right decision not getting the 4G on the iPad? And I'm thinking, probably for now. Eventually, maybe my next iPad will be a 4G iPad, but I think so far so good.
People who have Verizon LTE are reporting astounding speeds, like 50 megabits down, 15 megabits up. I don't know. I mean, it's almost overkill. It's not like you're downloading giant applications. Huh?
Yeah.
Are you quoting that accurately, 50 or 15?
50 down. Both
50 down.
MG Siegel reported that in San Francisco, and somebody just mentioned it, that his friend in Portland is getting 50 down, 49 megabits down.
Okay. Boy, see, now that's my Fios connection right there.
Exactly. But on the other hand, if you only buy 3 gigabytes a month, you're going to go through that lickety split.
Well, but still, that'll only come into play if you're doing lots of streaming.
Right.
But if you're still a typical user, you're still going to be getting pictures, just the same transaction, only you'll get it faster. But I mean, this is the reason why
that's a good point.
When I buy my iPad 3, it is going to be an LTE model, because there's something about a tablet computer that to have an implicit connection to the internet really does change the device. Even if you just have to wait exactly 10 seconds to log into a public Wi-Fi, that really does change the experience a little bit. Also, I'm so aware that there's so many times when I just can't find Wi-Fi or good public Wi-Fi. I have to say that unfortunately the Panera up the street has lost its license as a venue for my working out of the house, because not only is the Wi-Fi terrible, even the HSPA Plus on the AT&T mode without LTE is faster than its own Wi-Fi, and then they changed they increased the price of a soda by 15 cents. But now that I have a 4G iPad, though, now if I want to, I can work at the Chipotle. I can work at all these. I can work at the Dunkin' Donuts with the terrible Wi-Fi. It doesn't.
Oh,
matter
you don't
anymore.
mean get a job at the Chipotle? Things aren't that tough. You meant I can get work done.
It is a growing franchise.
It really depends on your use case. So Rich may only go to the same 2 places all the time, and they both have good Wi-Fi.
the bar in my study. That's
exactly.
right.
You work at home, so you know. But if you spend time at airports, random airports across the country, or you're on construction sites or whatever, you need to access. I could see it. I mean, what's good is we're getting great performance.
Even the AT&T model, I was getting the highest I got was about 12 megabits. On average, it was about 7 or 8. That's what I reported in my review. But yeah, it's not a trivial upgrade.
No, amazing. How's the battery life when you're using LTE? People are reporting about 1 hour less, 9 hours.
It's consummate. It's commensurate with what you get on 3G. So if I'm using LTE exclusively, it was burning at about 30 to 40% faster than it would without LTE. It's not, and which is just a little bit higher than what I'm experiencing when I'm just doing nothing but 3G. So all in all, I would say the battery life is about the same as what you get on the iPad 2. LTE does burn battery faster than 3G, but not so much that you would want to not use it.
And so that means that Wi-Fi iPads like Rich's are getting even more battery life than the previous year's model.
Not that you would actually feel it. I would say that most of the power is being sucked up by the screen and not by. Unfortunately, I do have to say that I don't have like real benchmarks going here at the office when I test out battery life. It's more like I take a note of what the battery status was when I started working exclusively LTE, then take a note of what it was before I compare it to what I was getting a couple years ago. So I do think that the LTE was burning a little bit faster. I have also been trying it without any 3G, without any 4G, without any LTE. And when I'm watching a movie, for instance, movie watching is almost exactly the same amount of battery life as previous. So I wouldn't. If you do get longer battery life working without LTE, I haven't seen that.
Interesting. Okay. They did really beef up the battery. It's not much heavier or thicker, but the battery is significantly.
Shot at. I'm just holding this in front of me. Forget the Kevlar. This battery is going to stop pretty much anything.
Yeah. Let's talk about overheating, because that's the one thing I'm getting a lot of people asking me on Twitter and elsewhere. Well, how hot is your iPad 3? Is it overheating? Are you having problems? You reported this in your review. I've seen other reviews say 5 to 10 degrees hotter. Right? What is it? It's a corner where the A5 chip is. Is that it? A5X chip is, right?
Right. If you're holding it like this, you'll feel a little bit of extra heat, like right here. I certainly wouldn't characterize it as overheating. Only that I've used the iPad 1, not used to after using it for a couple hours. Part of the back of this being any warmer than any other part of it. I mean, apart from the heat from my hands. So this is the first iPad I've ever used where I can notice that. Gosh, this feels in this hand right here. Even when I have it in an easel, it feels a little bit warmer. But really, that's all it is. It feels a little bit warmer. Now, there are people in Apple support forums who are mentioning that, no, actually, mine got actually too hot to touch. And if that's, I don't believe that that's a design problem. I think that either A, they got a defective machine, or B, there's a piece of buggy software that's not allowing the CPU to do proper management, power management, and then so it's kind of overdriving the CPU somehow. And if that's true, it would be something that either that bad piece of software could fix itself, or Apple could say, okay, in certain circumstances, it's possible for the A5X to forget that it's losing its head and please try to spin itself down. We're going to be introducing a bug fix for that. So I don't believe it's a design problem at all.
Yeah, I mean, a better processor might be hotter, but it's not so hot that you go, wow. I haven't experienced any heat at all, but I have this case that I have, this exhibit case. It's it's like the Dodo case. It's a wood case. You wouldn't feel it. You wouldn't see it. I watched a movie last night, but it was in the case, and it's certainly not a problem that's going to cause crashing or anything.
If there's a causes the thing to keep on driving. I mean, there are thermal tolerances
right.
throughout this. That could be a problem. But all I can say is that I watched 3 hours of HD in this, and there was just, again, I could when I took it out of the easel, if I held it like this, I could sense that this hand was a little bit warmer than this hand, but it wasn't anything that I thought was of any importance whatsoever.
A number of people here's a 290 message thread on the Apple support community about overheating. The thing is, to me, overheating means causing a crash, not that it's warm. There may be some defects If it crashes, if you get that warning, your iPad's too hot, which you will get. I've had that if you leave it in the sun. Bring it back. That's not right.
Keep in mind that this is like the very first batch of iPad 3s to run off the assembly line are now being put into people's hands.
Right.
And the manufacturer is, you can always expect the first production run to reveal not necessarily design problems, but here is something that we could have checked a little better, but kind of snuck out. So now we're gonna tighten in those tolerances a little bit more. And also now that you have not just a couple of hundred of these being tested by engineers and journalists, now that you have millions of these in play, now if there's a problem, if there is an actual bug that only affects 1% of 1% of 1%, that's going to be a significant number of people who are going to be able to report that. Yeah, my car's on fire, and I'm pretty sure it started with the iPad.
Here's a fellow in the support forum saying his new iPad is 96.8 degrees. That's hot to the touch, but I think well within. I mean, you know, these processors are going to get hot. You got a dual core processor in there.
Apple's
117 degrees. That's probably too hot. Certainly too hot to hold.
Believe that Apple's tolerance is somewhere 93, 94.
Okay.
Internal safe operating temperature is somewhere in the low 90s, I believe. I think Jim Dalrymple over at The Loop contacted Apple, got a response back that simply said that it's well within our tolerances, so we don't consider if someone is reporting a temperature of X, we believe that temperature happens to be within the tolerances for this design. It's not a problem.
And the way to test it would be to play a challenging game like Real Racing HD2 or something like that. And play that for 10 minutes, holding that lower the lower right hand corner. And if it gets too hot to touch, you probably should bring it back. That's probably not okay.
It's hot to touch, and that's not what you're...
Warm, hot, fine. Too hot to touch, bad. I would say.
Doubles as a warmer.
Say again?
Doubles as a bed warmer, as in colonial times.
Oh, yeah. You just slide it between the sheets.
I've actually Android tablets that really did get that hot, where it's like... As I'm reading, and not even like doing something really important, but if I'm reading and then I move to Flash, that goes fine. I move to Flash video, and then within like halfway through an episode at CBS.com or whatever, it's like, that shouldn't be.
Some are saying, I'm just reading some of the comments in the forum, that it's sometimes seems to be tied to screen brightness. If you've got your brightness turned up all the way, you're more likely to experience these issues. I have mine set on automatic. I find that the software does a very good job of keeping the brightness accurate. Others say that after you use it for a while, the battery gets conditioned and you don't have a problem. That sounds like voodoo to me.
Well, this is people speaking with 2.5 days worth of experience with the new iPad.
Right. All right. Anyway, I thought I'd bring it up because it is something people are pinging me.
Back up in a month, then it'll be a problem. But if by the end of the month we realize that this is such a small fraction of people, they got it swapped out and a problem went away, or they find out that, it turns out there is a circumstance under which the CPU will never sleep, and Apple simply fixed that bug, so now the CPU sleeps properly in all circumstances. I really think that at worst that's what's going to happen. Apple's just, we found an edge case scenario in which the CPU would fail to sleep properly, and so we fixed it.
The iFixit teardown, it was fun to watch it as it was happening. They said, we're doing it right now. They got theirs in Australia, of course, a day early, and flew it back, tore it down immediately. These guys are great. And I was watching kind of almost in real time as they discovered this or that. We mentioned the battery, 42.5 watt hours as opposed to 25 in the older model. That's a huge increase, more than a 50% increase.
Consider get exactly the same amount of battery life as you did with the last one. Boy, that screen is really kicking some.
And you think it's not LTE? You think it's the screen? I guess you're right because it's Wi-Fi has the same.
Yeah.
I
don't think it's a big deal, but yeah, that's a hell of a screen.
Yeah. Some have use this as a reason why Apple will never do, or will not this time around anyway, do an LTE iPhone. That you could put a 42.5 watt hour battery in the iPad. There's lots of room, but you can't in the iPhone. But it sounds like what you're saying is it's the screen. It's not the LTE, so nothing to worry about.
Yeah, I'm going to back up Andy on this. There are 2 extra cores in the GPU this time around, and between that having 4 times as many pixels to drive, you need that much extra battery, not just in terms of battery runtime, but also in terms of how much current you're going to need to draw from it at once. I don't think LTE makes that big a difference, and my purely uneducated guess, because I am a software guy, not a hardware guy, is that an LTE iPhone would probably make provision with a slightly larger battery if power consumption really is that big an issue for LTE. But I don't see power requirements as standing in the way of an LTE iPhone.
Another thing that ZDNet's hardware blogger Adrian Kingsley Hughes found surprising was that most of the components, including the screen, are Samsung. The frenemy, I guess. I know that LG can also make these Retina displays and is possibly supplying Retina parts, but Samsung is still doing many of the chips inside. It's a big company. Maybe they don't dislike those guys. Just the phone guys.
Like making money.
Yeah. It's kind of, you can't tear down your whole supply chain because you're in a lawsuit with people. Mac Rumors forum member has discovered the Verizon iPad, get this, can run on AT&T's 3G network if you just swap out the SIM.
Yeah, you don't get LTU, you don't get HSPA plus, but it will work fine on 3G apparently. They've also had that working on micro SIMs from other carriers too. They've also tried to see if that works the other way around, is to put micro SIMs from other carriers into the AT&T model. The AT&T model will not have it. So it seems like there's nothing but upside to using to going
Verizon.
Not only do they have a larger LTE network, not only are they giving you tethering right now, not only are they including the price of tethering in their regular tablet data plan, but if you're traveling internationally and you just want to buy a SIM just going, it seems possible that you can get the Verizon model working on a foreign 3G network. I haven't seen a report from that, but now I believe that would be at least worth trying. If I were in London, if I were to have a trip to London coming up, I would be saying, well, it might be worth spending £20 to buy a SIM just to see if it'll work.
Yeah, somebody wrote me an email saying, I bought a Verizon iPad, but we're traveling. Should I have bought the AT&T? And I said, I don't know for sure. You should ask Verizon. But generally speaking, the CDMA devices won't work on a GSM network, and even if they will, they're probably locked. I was wrong on both counts. Not only does this CDMA iPad have GSM capability, and nowadays that's fairly common because one chip does both. They're probably using that Qualcomm chip, but Apple didn't lock it, or at least didn't lock this guy's. That's surprising.
I think I wouldn't be surprised if 2 months from now there's going to be a system update.
Yeah.
That everybody's saying, do not update firmware if you plan to travel internationally with your iPad because you'll lose a cool feature.
Yeah. Well, that is great, though, that I can put a micro SIM in here the next time I go overseas and be able to, even though it's not HSPA plus, at least I'll be able to use the 3G network.
At least you get 3G. Although it should be pointed out that it's not as though you put in a new SIM and everything works magically. You then have to manually configure your iPad to work on this new network. But once you get all the bibs and bobs plugged in correctly, apparently it does work.
Presumably, if you're in France and you go to the Orange store and you say, j'ai besoin de micro SIM pour le iPad, half those words are English. They will say, oh, and you must reconfigure the APN, and I will help you do that. Because that is, you have to put a new APN in for whatever carrier you're using. But I would imagine that's all part of it. You'd have to do that with the phone too. Let's take a break. We've got a great panel here, Rich Siegel from. I'm going to ask you, Rich, about development for iOS. Are you doing any iOS stuff?
A little bit, just a little bit, though.
Good. And then talk more about other tablets and Apple's losing its day in court. Interesting. It was all good news for Apple right up to that point. But first, let's talk about backing things up. With Carbonite.com, works great on the Mac. Automatic, continuous backup to the cloud. Now, you may say, well, I've got iCloud. I don't need this. Well, this is something a little bit different. It's really dedicated backup for you say what folders, what files, what documents. It works on all versions of Mac OS as well as Windows. And it's unlimited storage. So you don't run out of storage as you would if you tried to back up your whole hard drive on iCloud. It's $59 a year for everything on your internal hard drive. They even have plans for external hard drives and multiple computers if you want to back up even more. Carbonite.com. I want you to give it a try. It's free for the first 2 weeks when you use our offer code, MacBreak. And then do that. I really want you to do the free trial. You got it because it's dependent on your bandwidth. It uses your upstream bandwidth. You want to make sure. In fact, that first 2 weeks free is kind of Carbonite's way of saying we'll do the first, get that first backup done for free. And then it just continuously backs up any changes. And it happens very quickly anytime you're online. Completely secure. It uses SSL. So go ahead and use it on an open access spot. No problem. It's great for students for that reason. As they move around campus, it's always backing up. And if you want to further encrypt, you want a HIPAA compliance, for instance, you get to keep the key. Carbonite will encrypt it for you using public key, strong cryptography, and the key is yours. Carbonite cannot see that data. It's absolutely private. What more can I tell you? This is just a great solution. Carbonite.com, 2 weeks free. If you decide to do the 2-week free trial, please use MacBreak because when you decide to buy, you'll get 14 months for the price of 12 with the offer code MacBreak. MacBreak. Carbonite.com. Carbonite. On the Spelling Show. Thank you, Carbonite, for your support for MacBreak. Weekly. Lenovo is going to do a Windows 8 tablet. Do we care? Is Windows 8 going to be a challenge? Well, okay, this is a good question for a developer. Now, Rich, you've never done anything for Windows, period.
Correct.
You never would even think about it.
Probably not.
He was thinking about it right there.
You made me think about it. Don't look at that rhino on the other side of the room. What rhino?
Does the fact that Windows 8 really is going to be a tablet OS, does that change your opinion in any way?
Not especially, no. I mean, we've always done Mac development and okay, so the iOS isn't a Mac, but it doesn't matter because it's the same core.
Right.
And there are a lot of the same design principles. And
what are you doing on iOS?
Well, we have Yojimbo for the iPad, which is a companion for Yojimbo on the desktop, and we've been maintaining that. And of course, the iCloud transition is coming up, and so we're looking at taking advantage of that before Mobile Me goes away into the sunset. And so that's keeping us pretty busy.
Yeah. Once you have iCloud, then you just use that instead?
Yeah, today we have point-to-point synchronization between a single iPad and a single desktop client. But yeah, once iCloud's on board, the synchronization story sort of goes back to what it was with Mobile Me.
Right. So you're working on that?
Yep.
And Feld in our chat room says, can we have Text Wrangler too?
It depends on what you wanted to do. There are a lot of considerations in doing a product like BB Editor Text Wrangler on the iPad, and
it's not really a text editing, monster, is it?
Well, not really, because the way you interact with an iPad for editing is real different. Usually you're editing in smaller bits, and yes, okay, you could hook up an external keyboard and write an entire column on it. As somebody I know, I think did recently, but for coding, there's not a clear story there. So we're not going to rule that one out because the iOS and the hardware are clearly moving in a direction that makes it a little bit more accommodating of uses like that, but there's still a lot to work out.
I was kind of surprised. I've been using the dictation in the iPad. And it's so good that I actually find it easier to do email on the iPad than on my desktop. All of a sudden, I'm doing my email. I'm powering through it.
Mm-hmm.
And it works here. I'll show you. It works really great. So here, Craig Fine just sent me, I won't show you his information, but sent me this great graphic. Really pretty. So I want to send him a thank you note. So I'm just going to do a reply, press the dictation button. Hey, Craig, that's gorgeous. Thank you so much! Exclamation mark. Thanks for listening and writing, period. And it's perfect. I've had to do a little correction every once in a while, but talk about an easy way to respond to email. I've been powering through my email with dictation. And once you get used to the kind of the cadence and rhythm that works best, you can be pretty close to 100% all the way. It does punctuation. You could say new paragraph. You can say exclamation mark. I even said ellipsis the other day, and it worked.
You can say smiley.
Say again?
You can say smiley, and it'll insert a smiley.
No.
Yes.
Wait a minute. Let me try that. Hey, Craig, ellipsis. I forgot to insert a smiley. Insert smiley. Did I do that right? Oh, it did! So I don't need the insert. Just say smiley. How funny. It was smart enough to know the difference. It actually typed smiley and then put a smiley. It knew the difference. I forgot to insert a smiley, and it put a smiley. Does it do frowny?
I think it does. I'm not someone who uses frownies in my emails, so
Wow.
Now, see, that's pretty impressive. Now,
No
go
kidding.
Go ahead and write a web page using HTML, PHP, CSS, and a little JavaScript.
Yeah. Bracket, end bracket, close bracket, slash. No. I suppose you could.
Colon left bracket, angle bracket left.
You know, there are going to be people. I predict that there are children growing up today who will write code that way. Semicolon, new paragraph. Although what really should happen is, as long as the machine is translating speech into text, it might as well translate commands into code. You know, wait for a few minutes and then launch a process. Let's call it draw screen. Put that in the window that's on top there. No, not that one, the other one, and just have it do that.
Yeah, you should be able to develop software by saying, Instagram, I that only not actionable by the Instagram.
Give me an Instagram I can't be sued for, will you? Working. What a world.
Abstraction, and you can just sort of describe in broad terms what you want to do, and the machine will generate code to do it.
Do you think that'll happen someday?
I think at a high level with certain sorts of user-facing automation, I could see Automator itself, the very trick technology that's part of the OS, I can see that evolving to hook up to dictation, because there's a fairly well sorted out set of things you can do. I think writing code is always something you're going to do with hands on a keyboard, though.
Yeah. You guys still need a truck.
That's right.
Sorry.
They need a truck.
Do you worry, Rich, about the future of Macintoshes? Apple seems to kind of, they're so enamored of the iOS side, they seem to be kind of stepping back from Macs.
I don't think so. You're still going to need Macs to develop the iDevices.
Yeah.
You still need the sort of processing power. You still need the sort of storage, both dynamic and static storage, that desktop devices can provide. There are always going to be applications that are the next generation of throughput requirements that are going to exceed what's available on a mobile device, and I include iPads as mobile devices. So I don't really worry about the future of desktop computing. Are they going to change radically? Do I know what they're going to look like in 5 years? No idea what they're going to look like in 5 years, to say nothing of 10 or 15 or 20.
Right.
I think there's always going to be a place in the ecosystem for something that is an order of magnitude or two more powerful than that thing you carry around in your hands. So, as such, no, I don't really worry about it. As long as Apple is using Macs to produce the iOS and and mobile devices, I think there's going to be a place for them. Either that, or we're going to go back to the days when you bought a Lisa and used it to write Mac software.
Oh my God, you weren't. Were you around then?
That was. Well, there's a funny story there. That the days in which that was routinely done were just a couple of years before the time I started writing Mac software. In fact, my very first job was working for one of the very first producers of native Mac developer tools.
Who was that?
However, that was a company called Think Technologies.
Loved. Yeah. Oh, that
Yeah.
C compiler. Think C was amazing.
Yep, Lightspeed C and Think C really
Lightspeed.
changed.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was the first name of it.
Yeah.
They really changed the game, and but I did for a while work on a project that was still an old school Mac project that predated all of that stuff, and I had to use Elisa to build and debug a Mac product. And let me tell you, I don't want to go back there.
No, cross-platform development is always horrible.
Although I have to say that having done iOS work, the basic notions are the same.
Same
there.
thing. Yeah, you're right.
And,
yeah,
and the experience is much more refined than it used to be. So, there's nothing wrong with cross development as such. It's just, I don't know that I'd want to do Mac software that way.
No. Wow. Yeah. Think. You started to think. That's right. I think I knew that about you.
Yeah, I was there in 1987.
Was that MIT that were those MIT graduates that were doing that, or it was?
No. The guys who started there were actually Harvard grads, Harvard math.
Okay.
The principal architect of Lightspeed C was, I think he'd gotten his undergraduate degree in philosophy and then went back and got his master's in math. Which is perfect when you think about what it takes to work on a compiler.
Oh, yeah.
A very bright guy. I think he's actually working at Apple now.
I was using, of course, MPW first, and then I think I used Code Warrior.
Mm-hmm.
And then I really loved, Lightspeed, and then ThinkC was it was so fast. I had used Turbo Pascal from Borland on Windows, so I really liked this idea of write, compile, iterate. These cycles were so quick. It was a revelation. People who had, you go have a cup of coffee while the thing compiles.
Oh, yeah.
No more coffee.
Yep. Remember those days? Oh, no, I have coffee.
Yes. While it compiles, yeah. Just
that's
drink
my
fast.
pick of the week is coffee.
All right, I got a question for both of you. I really would like to buy a second screen, a second cinema display for my Mac Pro. One 27-inch screen, just not enough. Should I wait? Will there be a Retina cinema display? Is Apple going to go all Retina? If they keep these Mac things, these trucks alive, will they go all Retina, or will they not even bother?
I think that a desktop display is probably already Retina because you don't use it. You don't hold it so close to your face. You need that ultra high resolution.
Good. So I'll buy that right now then. I was just waiting for your go ahead, Andy.
Well, you can't see it, of course, but I have a going on 7 years old 30-inch cinema display.
Oh yeah.
My only complaint about it is that it draws a lot of juice and it actually puts out a surprising amount of heat.
I bought that display, that same display. I think one of our editors now uses it because I like one display that's extra big, but I don't think Apple sells that anymore. I don't see it on there. I would love to get a 30-inch display.
No, they don't. But, you could look around, get one used maybe.
Yeah. Maybe I could buy it from you.
Maybe.
Here's a refurbished 30-inch, $12.99, out of stock. Apple says out of stock. Originally released in 2004.
Okay, so there's a feed that I'm using. Let me see if I can find it here. refurbtracker.com.
Oh.
And it scrapes the Apple Store, so you plug into it what you want. It's refurb-tracker.com. And you plug into it what you're looking for, and it shows up in your RSS feed when there's something ready.
How cool.
Yeah.
How cool. So here's a refurbed quad-core i7 iMac 27-inch 1569. That is a good deal. This is how we'll be buying all our Macs going forwards. I'm sorry, I shouldn't say that. The school my kids go to, my daughter went to, my son currently goes to, used to give MacBooks to incoming freshmen. It was a one-to-one computer program, which is a great idea. Apple has discontinued that white MacBook, and we're up in the air about, well, what do we do? And I hate to, this kills me. They're looking at a Lenovo Windows machine because Apple has nothing in that price point that's robust enough to give a high school kid.
I think the Apple's answer to that is, we'll get them an iPad. If you concerned about, you put them in it right in a Gorilla case. I'm not saying that's the right answer, but that's I am sad that they've gotten rid of that different machine.
They're going to lose schools.
It's like as the parent of no child in the house, all this.
I suggested an Air, and they said it's too expensive. And we're worried because it doesn't have a drive, so we're going to have to buy an external drive, optical drive, because all the textbooks still come with CD-ROMs in them. The French book does, the physics book does, and the kids need to mount those CD-ROMs.
Setting that problem again. It's not that you use a DVD or a CD every single week, but if you only need one twice a year. That twice a year, boy, are you going to be annoyed that you don't have computers in the house that have a CD drive. I bought a digital microscope a couple of weeks ago that came packaged with a CD, and it became such a Yes, I could have used CD sharing, but unfortunately it was a Windows problem. I don't actually have a working Windows machine that actually has a CD drive. My main Windows notebook is an ASUS machine that has no DVD drive built in. So the only times I need it are the times where it's frustrating as hell that I can't use it. So that's the sort of problem that people, like the educators, are bumping their heads against.
Yep. This go ahead.
Sorry, just as a countervailing viewpoint, my stepson's going to an independent school, and they're actually I think K through 12 or 1 through 12, and the middle school there has just started a 1-to-1 iPad program where every student gets an iPad. So they're getting away from hard media. Just wanted to
well, with the textbook initiative, that makes a lot of sense. They put all the textbooks on there. I worry about how are the kids going to write papers.
Oh, hard to tell. In high school, they have laptops, and
so they do still have laptops. So this is only for the middle school.
Correct.
Yeah.
And there is a little bit less writing. There's a little bit less writing in the middle school, but I mean that's a legitimate concern. Of course, you can connect a keyboard up to an iPad, so that's something to think about as well.
It's kind of kludgy. By the time, I know. Naturally, I'm the tech advisor, and I'm going. I don't know what to do.
Now, how would you feel about virtualization? Because how would you feel about all the kids get iPads, and when they need to run like Windows-style apps, they simply connect to a school server that's running Windows in virtualization mode. So it can just simply act as a client. So it works great as a tablet, works great as an e-reader device, looks great for electronic textbooks. But when you do need that piece of whatever Windows Lab system, they can just simply work with a machine that they can't touch, they can't control, and they can't screw up.
Possibly, yeah. The other reason that I worry for a student about an iPad experience, and I worry a little bit about where OS X is going. By the way, this is if you go to apple.com/education. Apple clearly wants you to buy iPads. That's probably why they discontinued the white MacBook, to be honest. They want you to buy white iPads instead. I worry a little bit about the lack of Windows because, I don't know, maybe this is old school, but I like to have, say, I'm writing a paper, I would like to have a browser window open to the right or a textbook. I'd like to have multiple windows, and you can't do that either.
That's absolutely correct. When I was writing my review, it was about a 4,000 word project, and I got to so I had like my personal iPad and the loaner iPad 3, and I just got used to the fact that this is a really good setup. Having two separate machines with two separate windows, I can have a dual screen thing that's still lighter than my MacBook. Which I had one open that was just for specs and research. The other one that I had just my word processing window on. But to ask somebody to say, well, if you want to have a second window open on your iPad, it'll cost you $399 for a second iPad. But it works great. I think that's one of the reasons why I'm really curious to see how consumers react to Metro on Windows 8, because Metro has solutions to that kind of problem that right now iOS does not.
Right.
I'm curious if that's so important to so many people that people are going to consider that a real tactical advantage.
This just in from Apple Insider Consumer Reports, which is doing its review of the new iPad and just published. They're going to do a first look later this week. They quickly published on Tuesday afternoon information that its engineers recorded temperatures as high as 116 degrees while playing Infinity Blade 2. That was an iPad standing up with Apple's smart cover, the 4G LTE connection off, and the tablet was plugged in. The game ran for 45 minutes, and they got to 113 degrees unplugged, 116 degrees plugged in. That's 13 and 12 degrees hotter, respectively, than the same tests with an iPad 2. So it does get hotter. I don't know if that is outside of Apple's tolerance, but it does get hotter. They have an interesting heat map here. On the left, the new iPad. On the right, the iPad 2.
I confess I didn't try gaming. I played games, but not like for hours on end.
Well, that's where you're going to get the most CPU and GPU activity, right, is playing something with a 3D rendering.
Absolutely.
Wow. All right. Well, I don't know if 116 degrees is unacceptable or not. That's pretty hot. Is that too hot to the touch? I don't know.
Depends on what your hands are made of, I suppose.
I worked as a fry cook at McDonald's when I was a teenager. I have no feeling in the tips of my fingers. This is in the old days. Now McDonald's, I think they have a machine that flips the burgers, or they grill both sides at once. But in the old days, you would take 3 patties they had a long spatula, and you have 3 regular patties and 3 fingers, and you'd flip them. They taught me to do it that way. And the first few times it was like, and by the end of my shift, I didn't feel a thing. And I never will again. Nowadays, kids today, they grill both sides at once. It's easy. Mike Daisey, the name that will live in infamy. Mike is the monologist, the solo performer who I know fairly well. We used to have him on the screensavers all the time. I really like the guy who did The Agony and the Ecstasy of Steve Jobs, in which he talked about apparently fabricated tales of meeting workers who had been poisoned at the iPhone factory, of many child workers, also fabricated. This American Life, as we mentioned a few weeks ago, did a special show on conditions at Foxconn. Interviewed Mike. Actually, they played the part of the monologue, and at no time did Mike Daisey say, I made this stuff up. Well, on Friday, This American Life did an entire episode dedicated to a retraction because apparently Daisey did make this stuff up. Some have said, well, why didn't Apple say anything? And apparently, at least one reporter for, I think it was Slate Magazine, said, Apple did say, unofficially, anonymously said, you really ought to look into this stuff before you republish it. Apparently, they said the same thing to This American Life, which ignored them. Before I tell you a surprising reaction to this, let me ask each of you what you think about this. Mike Daisey apologized, but said, hey, I'm not a journalist, it's theater. My only mistake was allowing it to be used on This American Life as if it were journalism. Does that stand?
No, that's just BS. What really frustrates me about, and he isn't the first and the only person to do things like this, is to say that is to give a presentation and say and want to have the legitimacy and the respect of someone who's done their research, has their facts down cold. They want to get that kind of honor and that kind of respect. But then when people point out that, wow, you really cut corners here, you did things that no journalist would ever allow to happen, they say, oh, well, hey, I'm just an entertainer. Hey, I'm in the rules of theater. I'm creating a new reality. It's like, no, I mean, I'm sorry, but if you're going to go on a news show after you do your little stage piece and say that, well, here are the conditions that I saw and here's that you're not on a stage at that point. And while you're on the stage, you're not playing the part of this guy. You're actually using your own name, recounting your own experiences and saying phrases like this really happened. I actually saw that. What are people going to maybe everybody are you going to send a briefing paper to every single person in that theater saying, now let me explain what the rules of the theater are to you before you believe any particular detail that I'm going to tell you, realize that I might make things up just to sort of get to the larger truth underneath it. That's just BS. And he's compounding his error, I think, by going on, but his response is not, yeah, I just thought it would be more easier to understand if I fudged a few facts. Most of the things I was talking about really happened. They may not have happened right there that moment, but they really happened. No, he's saying, it's really sad, isn't it? How unfortunate that some bellyachers are harping on trivial details when really the issue is worker safety. No, you're hiding behind the issue of worker safety because you don't want to simply look at people in the eye and saying, yep, I made this stuff up. I manipulated you and I perpetuated a falsehood about what my experience is because I wanted to manipulate you into thinking exactly what I wanted to think. And there is a point that there is still a lot of problems with manufacturing, a lot of problems with labor that need to be addressed. It should be said that, for instance, organizations like the New York Times published long pieces that were sort of inspired by this monologue, but they weren't just simply cutting and pasting his monologue verbatim. They're actually reporting on, well, these incidents really, really happened. This incident with the powder explosion really, really happened. This incident with the hexane really, really happened. But instead of conflating, instead of trying to make it into more than what it was, or trying to make he held out a gnarled claw that was once a human hand and reached for the iPad. I don't know. It's insulting because he's basically saying that the fact that there are workers who are injured in industrial accidents, that's not compelling enough. You have to make a lie around it in order to make people listen to it. That's just BS. So that's just terrible. No excuse.
You agree, Rich?
I do. I was looking for something that Andy said that I could latch onto and amplify on, but there isn't. You've just
statement.
said almost exactly what I would say. There, I mean, even the argument that you can distort the facts in service of the truth or in service of the greater cause. I'm sorry, that just doesn't work. And I think one of the tragic things here is that, apart from just having completely depth bombed his own career, he's also caused a loss of credibility in the issue that he was trying to highlight to begin with. There is a real issue there. I don't argue that at all, but I fear that too many people are going to say, oh, well, he made this stuff all up. Whether or not there's an issue there isn't really important, and maybe there isn't an issue there after all. And
that would be a shame.
And that would be a shame. That will happen. Maybe not enough to completely dilute the issue to begin with, but yeah, it's going to happen, and that is, to me, very unfortunate. But yeah, other than that, I really have I don't have any argument with what Andy just laid out.
CNET, Greg Sandoval at CNET interviewed, of all people, Steve Wozniak about that. Woz saw the show, The Agony Ecstasy of Steve Jobs, in February, and actually, I think it was February of last year. And he says that he defends him. He says, I think his monologue, this is a direct quote, has influenced Apple to take steps in that direction as best they can. I don't want to see that undone because people must know there are workers who can't get medical coverage and are underage and are put on a blacklist that prevents them from getting work again. I applaud Mike Daisey because of the attention and understanding he has brought to this. His show gets people feeling good and they tell themselves, I want to be a good person. Is there any way that I can help? I think Mike Daisey got Apple and other companies more attuned to the issue to do the most they can to make corrections. It is true that after, and I don't know if it's Mike Daisey or the New York Times reports, but Apple certainly has opened up the doors and has asked for an audit, and there is more attention on this. I think there is a risk that people could then brush it off saying, well, Mike made it up, so I think it's okay now. So let's emphasize that it's an ongoing problem. And something should be done about it. But I don't think Steve is a nice guy. Steve's never going to say anything bad about anybody, Wozniak. And I think that he probably was reluctant to say anything bad about Mike Daisey. I think Andy, you said it all. It is. Look, anybody who's doing storytelling on stage is making stuff up. The art of storytelling is making stuff up, but it's an issue. It's interesting because Foxconn is not going to. I saw this story that Foxconn is not going to sue as a result of this. I didn't know that they were even considering it. I think the best thing at this point is to say, look, we're going to do everything we can to make workers' conditions better. Period. And
I regret more effectively anything that Foxconn's lawyers or any court system would ever do.
Yeah, the retraction solved the problem. Yeah,
takedown, because it wasn't. Actually, Glass went. It was a very personal episode in which he was talking not only about here's what turned out to be true, what turned out to be true, but he also talked about talking to him later on. His audio of the conversation about, why did you tell us this? Because it turns out that he also was lying to the producers of This American Life about and doing things to prevent them from properly vetting some of the stories he's telling in the monologue. And it's like, and of course, it was just, it was a complete takedown. He got Oprah'd.
He was Oprah'd. Moving along, a new feature on the Apple Store, questions from the community and answers from the community. I think this is really interesting. Of course, Apple's had and was one of the early companies to put on their support forums a lot of information online that you could get information to. Now at the bottom of, this is at the iPhone 4S page, at the bottom of all the product pages, you will find questions and answers from the community, which is, I think, kind of cool. I presume that Apple's vetting the answers so that, it has a best answer. This is something I'm going to do on the Tech Guy page. Apple, you stole my idea.
I was going to say it's like Stack Overflow, but for
exactly, it's Stack Overflow,
but for Apple related stuff.
Yeah, we want to do this in the Tech Guy page, so I'll have the answer from the radio show, and then have listeners correct me or add, and then have votes, just like Stack Overflow does and Apple does, that raise the better questions or better answers, I should say, to the top. So this is good. I like this. Use community. Why not? Here's an interesting question from CNET about Windows 8 and Metro. What is Apple going to do about iTunes? Will Apple make a Metro version of iTunes? It would be a great way to torpedo Microsoft's tablet effort if they don't.
I don't think it would torpedo it. I mean, Microsoft has their own big gun, which is Microsoft Office. And if they simply decided that, I was thinking about this over the weekend as I was figuring out different ways I could use the new iPad for virtualization and with VNC, and ways to project desktop apps into the iPad screen, that Microsoft could do something hugely disruptive if they simply decided to sell Microsoft Office also as a virtual service, so that all you need to do is download a very simple client app on your iPad, on your Metro tablet, on your Android tablet, pay $5 a month, and you will get access to cloud storage and full versions of the desktop editions of Microsoft Office running on Windows. That would really upset the balance of power. A lot of people who would be saying that, I don't necessarily need an iPad. I just want to run these three important apps and the Kindle Reader and a whole bunch, and Skype and a couple other apps that are universal at this point. That would sway a lot of people away from the iPad towards the right kind of Metro tablet or the right kind of Android tablet. So I did read the article. It's interesting what Apple could do if they decided not to build a Metro iTunes app, but all they would have to, what would be more effective is to find a way to prevent people from making their iTunes libraries work with this tablet. As a matter of fact, it might even be in Apple's best interest to control the experience by building their own Metro app for iTunes. Otherwise, with 500 million licenses for Windows 7 alone in the past year, some clever developer is going to write a utility that integrates iTunes into Metro in ways that are probably as good as what a native iTunes app would do. And remember that we've seen in their history that if you leave an independent developer with the freedom to try to put as many features as possible into an unapproved app that interacts with the iPod or iTunes, they're going to find features that aren't available in the legitimate version of iTunes. So it might actually be. I could understand the argument that it's in Apple's best interest to make sure they control the experience on Metro as they can control it on Windows as well.
iTunes sure could use some challenges. I think would love to see. Actually, there are many other choices on Windows, like Monkey. What is it? Monkey Media. There's some really good choices that are Songbird. I love Double Twist. So there are some choices out there that are iTunes compatible already.
Yeah, let me cough up an alternative viewpoint for you on this, though. Something that is very clearly, I was going to say on the horizon, but actually it's here, and that is Apple is pushing extremely hard on getting iOS devices separated from desktop hosts.
Yes, as they should be, because a lot of people want iPads but don't have computers.
Well, indeed, and with iOS 5 and iCloud, you really can get along quite nicely without a desktop computer at all. There's over-the-air updating. There's over-the-air content downloading of your iTunes Store purchases. You can stream stuff to or from anything you like. So I think there's an argument to be made that Apple doesn't need iTunes on Windows anymore. And maybe that's a little bit ahead of the game. Maybe that's a little bit ahead of its time. But that's another way to look at it is, maybe Apple doesn't care if there isn't iTunes on Metro, because it is no longer a necessary component of supporting iOS for Windows users.
The other thing is, I don't think that any operating system now really needs the iTunes Store in and of itself. Now that we have a really good competitor in the Amazon MP3 Store, Amazon would deliver to a Metro tablet or an Android tablet not only pretty much every feature that iCloud and iTunes matches, but also Amazon Instant Video. So that will get video and movies. They just keep adding, and Amazon keeps adding and adding streamable licenses to their streamable library. So it's a really, there's a lot of variables here. The question is that can you really? The implication of the article, which I disagree with, is that Apple has the ability to kill a new platform by not directly supporting iTunes on it. And I don't really think that's true. There are already Android phones. The Android phones have managed to do okay without a native iTunes client on it. So I really think that if Apple tried to exert influence over Metro by not supporting it, they would find that wouldn't be correct. I think Rich is right, though. I think that Apple it's not so much that they're going to we're gonna kill Metro by not supporting iTunes, and then what are you going to do? I think Metro is might not necessarily even be on their radar, where we can get along fine with it. Without it, why create more problems for ourselves?
Let's wrap up. I did mention we would talk about the ITC ruling. You may remember that Apple tried to keep Motorola from selling phones in the U.S. It went to the International Trade Commission saying it infringes 3 Apple patents. ITC just said, nope. After looking at it, no violation. So the investigation is terminated. Apple could appeal to Federal Circuit Court, although they are appealing some other negative rulings from the ITC. But it's apparently uncommon for an ITC review notice like this to be overturned. So that's probably that on the Motorola complaint. We're going to take a break, come back with your tips, your picks. But first, a word from Audible.com, the world's largest audio bookstore, over 100,000 titles, bestsellers, nonfiction and fiction, sci-fi, young adults, mysteries, thrillers, romance, business. It just goes on and on. You pretty much have the run of the store, because I'm going to set it up for you that you can get a credit towards your first book, absolutely free. Most books are a single credit, so in most cases, this is a free book. All you have to do is go to audible.com/MacBreak, sign up for that gold account. The first book is free. You can cancel at any time, pay absolutely nothing. However, I think you will want to stick around because Audible is so great. If you listen to podcasts, you're just a natural Audible listener. It's just the way to solve my commute. It makes it more fun to be at the gym, makes it even more fun to do housework. I listen to Audible all the time. I'm wondering what, Andy always has a good pick. In fact, most of the Audible books I've listened to in my library, of over 500 books since I joined Audible 10, 11, 12 years ago, have been recommendations from Andy. I've got The Stand. That's next on my queue. They just released that 6-part, it's like 50 hours Stephen King novel. What do you listen to, Andy? What do you like these days?
Actually, I went back to something I bought a few years ago, Phil Plate's Bad Astronomy book that he published about 10 years ago. Phil's a friend. I'm also a fan of his Bad Astronomy blog. He just writes about science and the skies in a way that's really immediate and relevant and approachable to just about everybody. He, as usual, did the service to the Mac community, the Apple community, by evaluating the claim of Apple about the iPad's Retina display. He's an astronomer. Part of his job is to squint into eyepieces and have his eyes look at tiny, tiny little details. So the science of human vision is not at all unknown to an astronomer. So he was able to back up the claim that if Apple is saying that at a certain distance a display of this resolution is tighter than the human eye can resolve, I'm willing to say here's the math that says that yes, they are correct. You cannot actually resolve detail beyond this here. That astronomy book is really, really cool because two reasons. Just a whole bunch of different chapters about certain things that people don't really understand about how astronomy works. He started out the blog as a way of explaining how in every single movie a meteorite hits the Earth and is smoking hot. He has to explain that not hot when they hit the Earth, and here's the reason why they don't do that. So this is a collection of lots of those cool essays about explaining how things work with astronomy and how it interacts with the real world. But it's particularly good for audio because I have bought like science books as audiobooks, and the problem is like I'm trying to drive and focus on not killing myself and others. Meanwhile, I'm hearing someone say, yes, but NR black band radiation of more than 20 nanometers has an influence. With wait a minute, back again, has an influence formulated confusion when it interacts with, wait, what was that again? 9.2 nanometers, and now I'm in oncoming traffic. If you were so there are some people who are saying, oh, this is the Bad Astronomy book is a little bit too basic. I don't think it's too basic, but also it means that on audio, he's telling the narrator is really talking and explaining how things work, and it's very, very easy to understand and follow it as you're listening to the audiobook. So it is 10 years old, but facts about how why there are no stars in the Apollo moon landing pictures. There's no new research on that in the past 10 years, so it's all still perfectly good. But perennial favorite of mine, really like it a lot. And anything that Phil writes is worth listening to or reading.
I agree. Phil is just fantastic. The Bad Astronomer's Bad Astronomy book, a great pick. But that's just one of many, many books you could choose from. Pick up a book today on us. Your first book's free at audible.com/MacBreak. By the way, they've got a great iPhone app, iPad app. Actually, it's iPhone only. I mean, it works on the iPad, but it's not iPad-alicious. And Android app that I just really love because my whole library is on there. I can listen to any book in my library. Audible.com/MacBreak. All right. Let's get do you want to do a Mac OS tip, Andy, while we're talking tips, and then we can get our picks of the week?
I can give you a quick one. Most of my favorite Mac tips come from Preview app. I can't believe the number of features that they just put into this thing. You saw me using one of them last night. If you have a folder or a bunch of images or a bunch of anything that you need to show just to present really quickly, you can just select them all in the Finder. If there are images, hit Command to open them. They will not only open in Preview, because Preview is the default image viewer for GIF and JPEG and PNG, but also it will collect them together and use them as a unit. So then if you go into full screen mode, you can simply page through them as a slideshow, left, right, up, down. The image will slide to that direction. If you tap the down arrow, the next one will slide off to that direction. It's the quickest way if you want to present a sequence of images, and it's not worth doing a keynote presentation. It's not worth making a big deal out of it. You just need to present them. That's always my go-to solution. So someday I really think I could write a 300-page book just about the Preview app. And after I'm done with that, I would get feedback. Oh, you forgot the maglev implementation feature, which will predict what train will be coming at your station at any given moment. Wow, how do you do that? Well, just Option-Shift-Click on the Apple menu while a map is active. It will show you what trains are late, what trains are coming. Oh, interesting. Don't know why they did that, but I'm glad that they did.
Very cool. Very cool. Preview is an amazing app, isn't it? With many surprising features. Time now for our picks of the week. Let's start with Rich Siegel of Barebones Software.
I owe my presence on the show today to one thing.
What's
and
that?
It is my pick of the week. It is this. It is the black blood of the earth.
Do you drink it or pour it on your body?
I would eat through the skin.
Why choose? No, the black blood of the earth is a cold brewed extract of coffee. I'll just read off the bottle.
This is because you live in Rhode Island and you grew up on that Fox's You Bet or whatever that was, the syrup. What is the coffee syrup you get in Rhode Island only?
There are two brands, and it's actually the subject of gang wars here.
Exactly.
Eclipse.
Yes.
And Autocrat.
I'm an Autocrat kind of guy.
Oh, we can't be friends anymore.
You're an Eclipse guy? What is wrong with you, dude?
Oh, everything. Where do I begin?
So these things are the most bizarre, and you can only get them in Rhode Island. So it's coffee concentrate, highly sweetened. It's the condensed milk of coffee.
Oh, yeah. Coffee syrup is, yes.
And you pour it into a glass of milk, and it makes coffee milk, which is very popular in Rhode Island. They love their coffee milk.
In fact, in elementary school, they don't have chocolate milk. They have coffee milk.
Coffee milk, which is great. If you've ever seen kids hopped up on coffee and sugar together. Yeah. So is this what if you grew up on coffee milk, is this where you end up at the Funranium Labs and store?
No, this has nothing to do with coffee syrup.
Oh, okay.
The black blood of the earth is a cold brewed coffee extract. I'll just read the label because he says it pretty well. It's a cold extraction concentrate of single geographic coffee varietals from around the world in the interest of not damaging or masking the delicate flavors with cream and sugar. Now, the interesting thing about this stuff is that because he cold extracts it, it leaves behind all the acids that make coffee bitter and make you want to sweeten it.
Yeah.
But the other thing is that in terms as a means of caffeine ingestion, it's volumetrically extremely efficient.
So it burns your esophagus as it goes down.
No, because there's no acids in it. He left the acids out.
He left them out.
So all you get are the things that make coffee great in a pretty highly concentrated form. This bottle was actually full this morning.
Oh, my God.
No, I'm kidding.
How many milligrams of caffeine is that?
Well, this is a fifth. This is a 750 milliliter bottle.
Drinking a fifth of coffee.
But it's a bad idea, really pretty bad idea to drink more than 4 ounces of this stuff in a day.
Well, that's $40 worth for one thing.
So, yeah, a single bottle of this lasts me, a month or two, I think.
Okay.
So
do you dilute it or you drink it straight?
It depends on how much of a hurry I'm in. Sometimes I will use it to fortify my morning coffee. I'll brew a couple of shots of espresso and add a shot of this and a little milk because
this stuff is insane.
Oh, it's great.
He says by my calculations you have the equivalent of a month and a half worth of Starbucks Ventis.
Yeah, that's
in that bottle.
Right.
So how do you cold extract it? I'm curious. That's intriguing.
If you look on his website, he's got pictures. He's got a very intricate and to some people beautiful apparatus. He grinds the coffee. He adds water. He brews it down, and I forget what he said his production is, something like 9 liters a week or something like that of different varieties, and he bottles it and ships it.
This is the hardest core thing I have ever seen.
It's serious. It's very serious. There is a consumer cold brewing thing called a toddy. I can look that up.
So he has a comparison between regular coffee and a BBOTE or black blood of the earth. Cold water steeping followed by vacuum extraction, leaving the grounds almost as dry at the end as when they started. Therefore, less acid, less staining, no brown teeth. The oil has been removed, from the coffee bean, but not the acid. And wow, we're talking. He doesn't say how many milligrams of caffeine, but it's not an insignificant amount.
It's great stuff, and if you enjoy coffee and or are a serious caffeine addict,
he says drink responsibly. No more than 100 milliliters, 3.5 ounces a day.
Yep.
So you really could go into fibrillation with this.
Yes, or you might run into toxicity issues. Well, I mean, if you drank too much of it, it's possible to overindulge in anything, right? But it's great stuff. It's very flavorful. If you enjoy the flavor of coffee,
I do.
Or if you,
but I put cream and sugar in my coffee. I know that's anathema, but again, I've been spoiled by Artocrat for many years.
Well, if you try this with a little milk,
that's okay.
Yeah,
that's allowed.
Yeah,
I'm ordering some right now.
Yeah, enjoy it. Try it.
We're serving this at TWiT from now on. Forget the wine and beer and whiskey. It's the black blood of the earth from now on.
That's right. This is great stuff, and I highly endorse this product.
Now, right now he's doing a Peruvian, or you could get a Rwandan. So these are all single Guatemala. Which do you like?
Well, I've had a sampling of things so far. I'm on a bottle of the Rwandan right now.
Yeah.
And it's very nice.
The Abakundakawa.
Yeah, you could try the sampler.
That's what I'm going to do. I'm going to get they have a $50 limited run sampler. These look like vials of blood. Oh my goodness.
Well, they are in a very real sense.
Holy cow! All right, I'm ordering this. We'll do it on the show. We'll do it as soon as it comes.
Have a tasting.
Yeah.
Especially if you've got coffee fiends in the house.
Oh, we do. Means. We live on coffee, right?
Right. I mean, remember, it's unsweetened, it's unflavored, it's just what comes out of it. So,
right. They have this comes with Death Wish, which is a soul blackening dark roast.
Yep.
Guatemalan Mundo Nuevo medium roast, and Colombian Paez medium roast, and then the Rwandan. Plus 2 vials of mystery will be chosen by my capricious whim.
Wow.
Yep.
Rich, I think you're great, but I understand why the universe led you to our show today.
Yes. Yes, the universe has led us to the black blood of the earth. Is there anything else you recommend? Is there a special consumption device? Perhaps a syringe?
I do not recommend injecting this. You should consume it orally. God. 50 milliliters per aura per day.
And Burke in our chat room is wondering, do you need to wear gloves when you're touching this brew?
If you spill the Death Wish, you may wish you had, but the rest of it is fine.
Do not spill on its way to your gullet.
That's right.
Andy Ihnatko, your pick of the week. I don't know if you could top that one.
Eileen, I'm hoping that, like, if you do get this in the office for the entire day, I want you to have a little indicator on all TWiT broadcasts indicating how much of this Leo has had.
That's a great idea.
This puts 5-hour energy drink in the back seat. I mean, this is for serious people.
Have you ever tried pocket coffee?
Yes, I know about pocket coffee.
So this is like a shot of espresso wrapped in chocolate, so you can actually.
Yeah, I love it.
Okay.
Yeah, love it. Sometimes I just eat the beans whole because I find I just want to. But this sounds like they've done all the work for you. It's like pre-chewed coffee.
It sounds like they need to sell this from an offshore island.
Sure they are. This is a Jonathan Colton mad scientist guy. I could tell.
And then 8 years from now, everyone turns into like Animal Men. It was just all a diabolical.
For $250, you can buy a 350 milliliter rugged stein of science. I don't know. Do you have one of these, Rich?
No, I don't have any of the steins. They look appealing, but I haven't found an excuse to get one yet.
It's fairly expensive.
They have a 4,900 milliliter one.
What would you put in that?
Everything.
I see.
Here's my coffee.
I see. But you wouldn't want to fill it up with this stuff.
Well, no, the stein
keeps things cold.
The stein keeps things cold or hot. I mean, you could brew hot coffee into it. But I think the Stein was originally conceived for cold drinks such as beers and soda.
They also have a brass. Oh, that's very steampunk. I think I do need to order that.
Yeah, he's got some lovely gear there.
Yeah, but not required.
No, the two are completely separate. The Black Blood of the Earth and the Steins of Science are
not related. Here's
not related.
This is I'm going to send this to Steve Gibson for his 5-shot venti lattes. This is a 1,000 milliliter shiny Stein of Science.
Here we go. You want the 4,300 milliliter Full Metal Jacket Stein of Science?
You think so? That's the one I really want.
Yeah, that's like a week's worth of beer.
1,000 is a little more than one really should. But it will stay cold all the way down.
Mm-hmm.
Holy cow.
You have taken your first step into a larger and more jittery world.
I do feel like my eyes have been opened. All right, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Andy.
Well, I openly admit this sounds profoundly lame and compared to the majesty of the Black Earth. But I'm before the Black Blood of the Earth. This is a really cool utility from Hack the Planet. It's called the Google Book Downloader. It actually got some publicity, I think, on Boing Boing this morning. What it is, it's a very, very simple utility that will take a URL to any book that's on Google Books, like any free book on Google Books, and it will download it and turn it into a PDF. So that if you buy those old copies of Popular Science, those old copies of Spy Magazine, and you want to turn them into ebooks that you can then put on your iPad, one click, done.
That is nice. And of course, it does make it work on the iPad, which is absolutely a great reason to do this. And Google's offering 25-cent books right now. This is a good time. Would it work with those, the protected books?
I've only used it on books that are free downloads.
Okay.
Type in the URL into the browser, and you'll be able to read it online through the online Google Books reader without paying any money. But it really is a one-shot tool. When you open it, when you run the app, you just see a very, very skinny little window with just what's the URL and then a button to click.
Cool.
It works. I don't believe it works on commercial titles. It would probably kind of be a cheat if it did work on commercial titles. But
I have a couple of picks. I'll tell you what, I'm going to save this one because the chat room just told me about it and I haven't played with it much, called Movie 360. But somebody in the chat room said this is a really cool iPad or iPhone program for making movies that has filters. So look at the sketch filter. You can actually, it turns what you're shooting a movie of into a sketch, has other features as well, including built-in zoom, so you can do incremental zoom as you're shooting, which is kind of cool. I'm really serious about using the iPad as a filmmaking tool, so that might be a fun one. I'll tell you what, I'll review that next week, because this week I want to show you something that is going to get me in such great shape. I'm so excited. It's called Zombies Run. Now, you won't use this on an iPad. I'm going to show it on an iPad because it's a big screen. This is for the iPhone. I've already purchased a special iPhone holder for my arm. This is a running program. So the idea, and I need this because I need motivation to get any exercise at all. The idea is this simulates a zombie attack. And so you'll hear them gaining on you as you slow down. You have to speed up to get away from them. We'll play a little bit of this. I played it, I think, another time. So here's your choices. You can have the music if you want to listen to your music in addition. So you can pick a music playlist. You get to turn this. I would suggest using the zombie chases. That's what I'm going to do. So a whole story starts to develop.
So you'll see the township as we loop round. Not much more than a few fences to keep the zombs out. Tiny little island of humanity.
So this is the setup. You're going to jog for a few minutes as you get the setup. And then as she will tell you, turn left, turn right, go farther, run over there. And your goal is to collect objects, virtual objects as you run around. So it uses the GPS. It makes it, it's all made up. But this is incentive to run like your life depended on it. Now, obviously, you want to be very careful. You can do this on apparently I haven't tried it, but it will work on a treadmill in the gym. But I want to strap this on and run outside. Maybe put a helmet on. Be careful if you're using this in traffic. Might be better to do this in a park. But doesn't that seem like fun? And you collect supplies, you encounter mobs, you get your pace, your time, the whole run. this is a way to really incent you to. This is the town you'll be running around. This will really incent you to get some exercise. I'm very excited about this. So I'm going to start doing this, and if I suddenly appear fit and thin, it'll be because I'm drinking the black blood of the earth and fleeing zombies. And I'll owe it all to you, Rich Siegel. This is Zombies, Run, ! It's available on the store, obviously. Rich Siegel is the creator of the absolute best editor ever for the Macintosh, for OS X, BB Edit. We didn't even, I think the last time you were on, we talked a little bit about the App Store versus, because do you have App Store versions and non-App Store versions?
Yes, we do today, yep.
And because of the limitations of the App Store, the feature sets are different, right?
Yeah, there are a couple of small differences because of some of the technical restrictions in the App Store, and we've worked around those by providing some outboard components for the command line tools. And
good way to do that.
And so, it's a little bit of an inconvenience if it's something that you run into, but it's not an insurmountable problem. I
hate to admit it, but I love buying stuff on the App Store because it's updated automatically. It just seems easier.
It is. It's very convenient, and 99.44% of the time, not an issue.
All right, so I already have a license for BB Edit, but I'll buy it on the App Store now.
Okay.
Version 10 is up, 10.1.1, $50, the best editor, but there is a free one called Text Wrangler. You can get that from barebones.com. And Yojimbo, which is a really fantastic database filing notebook-style program to keep track of all of the bits of information in your life, is also available on the App Store version 3.
Your digital junk drawer.
Yes, we all have them. And now you can make it elegant. Thank you so much for joining us, Rich, on such short notice.
Thanks for having me, Leo.
I do believe you have changed my life with the black blood of the earth. First with Bare Bones and BB Edit, and now with the black blood. Twice you've changed my life.
And the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to make an Eclipse drinker out of you.
No. Sorry. I have to draw the line somewhere. Actually, you cannot get either out here. And somebody brought me some Autocrat, and I just blew my mind because I hadn't tasted it since 5th grade.
We can fix that. I'll send you a load of Eclipse.
No, I don't need it. I got black blood of the earth. I'm shaking just thinking about it. Andy Ihnatko writes for the Chicago Sun-Times. His website, www.cwob.com. At Ihnatko, and his review of the iPad just went up on the Sun-Times site. Must read. Thank you so much, Andy.
Always a slice.
Great to have you. Thank you all for joining us. We do MacBreak Weekly Tuesdays, unless Apple screws with us. Tuesdays at 11 a.m. Pacific, 2 p.m. Eastern Time, 1800 UTC on twit.tv. Please watch live. It's fun live, and then you can be in the chat room and we can interact and that kind of thing. But if you can't watch live, we do make audio and video versions available. Video is still trailing audio, although it gains every month a little bit more. Available at twit.tv or subscribe in iTunes or your favorite podcatcher. It's nice if you subscribe. That way you don't miss an episode. Thanks to our producer, Eileen Rivera, who runs the board, puts together the show rundown, does the whole kit and caboodle. There she is. Even if she's an Android lover, we'll tolerate her. Thank you, Eileen. Thank you, everybody, for being here. We'll see you next time. Now, get back to work. Break time's over.